Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today, we are speaking with a competitor who started her journey in 2019 and earned her pro status at Universe after 6 regional shows and 6 national shows. Since then, she's done 2 pro shows in 2024, and she is a nurse practitioner who also runs her own business as a health and fitness coach, supporting lifestyle and competition transformations. She believes that God has brought her to serve in this way and sees that our body is a work of art that we can support and invest in. Welcome to the show, SELINA Stansbury. How are you doing?
Hi, thank you so much for that introduction. That's awesome. And I am doing well. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here. And I realized I just asked you how you pronounce your last name, and then I did the opposite. And then I'm like, well, maybe I should have. So I apologize. However it's pronounced.
Well, I'll figure it out someday. I'm not very helpful.
So before I ask you the question I ask everybody, do you know when I was preparing this episode, I realized we were both tied for the Sea of 16 at North Americans in 2022?
No.
We were in the same class, in Class E.
Oh my goodness. What a small world.
I know. I didn't know. I mean, granted, when you're backstage, you maybe remember the person in front of you and behind you, and maybe if you talk to them. But yeah, I was like, I have to ask her if she remembers that, because I didn't remember it.
No, I don't. North Americans. Yeah, no. North Americans 2022. So no, I don't remember.
Yeah, isn't that crazy though? I was like, this is awesome. So I'm so excited to have you. And of course, I like to ask this question, which is there anything you do, think about, or maybe a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage?
Right before my heel hits the stage, I didn't usually have a ritual, but over the years watching or listening to your podcast and over the years, I've heard different rituals. I kind of took bit of them. I really like psyching your mind out into thinking like you're actually excited, not nervous. So that was a really big one I took from a lot of the athletes that compete. And I think that was super helpful. And I usually say a little prayer, and I just ask for just me to have the clear mind to just present all the hard work that I have worked so hard to do. And that this is, I have to remind myself, this is the fun part. The hard work has been done. This is the showcase of the art. So yeah, just a little reminder before stepping on.
Yeah, walk me through the art mentality, because this is a very clear, this is your salient mission, it seems, is that you see your body and bodies as art. So what does that mean to you, and how did you come to that conclusion?
So this means to me that this is mine and my body only. And that's something that holds near and dear to me. And also how you build that and what you put into building that. And that's mentally, physically, emotionally, just as a painter would paint a picture. So everything that you consume, and I don't just mean eating, everything that you consume, on social media with the people you surround yourself with, goes into building your art. And everything that you mentally put into your body and just consume in general, it's going to present itself physically. And I tell people a lot of the times when they're hitting walls or not having, any momentum in their progress with their physiques, I'm honestly, what's going on in here? Because what you are thinking, it's going to manifest on your body. And if you can just kind of turn off the physical, stop looking in the mirror and figure out why you feel this way, this will come. So it's kind of where the art came from. And over the years, I think it's just developed into also a little bit history. I'll be super vulnerable with you on this. I think that a lot of women, and I've said this on a recent YouTube, I think that the society wants to make women think that they cannot put themselves out, like put a picture in a bikini or in a sexy photo because you're asking for it.
Mm.
And I do not agree with that statement. I think that's a societal thing. It is, if you're presenting it as what you believe is art and something you're proud of, like, you go for it, girl. Like, that's kudos to you. Like, you know what your intention is when you post a photo. So as long as that is pure, like, forget what anyone else has to say. Yeah.
Wow. Let's talk about that point actually, because I think in our industry, especially, it's actually something I personally struggle with, is sometimes there does seem to be a pressure to post certain types of content. And if you don't, then maybe you're not as I don't know. I don't know what the right word is, but it does seem like part of belonging in this industry is posting certain types of content. But like what you said, which is about intention, like, and all of us can kind of see an intention or a mission and fulfill that according to us versus doing it because we think we should or because we see that that's what's being rewarded or awarded. So to come to confidence in what you believe, I think is really interesting. So I want to hear how you actually developed the confidence in putting yourself out there and in making sure you can portray yourself despite how people might say that it's viewed.
Yeah. The confidence has taken a lot of internal work. And I think bodybuilding, it's kind of a balancing thing because obviously we go through the phases of being in an off season and then being super lean. And some people don't even like the super lean look. Some people are like, I'd rather not be lean. Yeah, that's me too. Like, there comes a certain point where I'm like, this is not my ideal physique. And even my friends will be like, do you like being that lean? I'm like, no, stop asking me.
Right.
It's part of the game. It's part of the game.
Exactly.
But I think it being part of the game made me have to be confident. Like, it makes me have to be confident in, like, the lean or the not lean, like, or I pushed it too far. Like, I have to know how to reel it in back and forth. And I've learned that over the 6 years. And it's been a journey. And my husband's super supportive and he's in bodybuilding. And I think that I know that plays a huge, huge role in me being able to find my confidence in having such a confident, like, significant other in himself that he wants to, like, put me on a pedestal. And he's like, I know what I got. Like, I know people are going to look. I know some people may give it the wrong attention. He's like, but, I know your intentions are pure. And as long as my goals, started my coaching business with wanting to inspire women, but it's inspired men. And I have male clients now, and I now coach my husband. And
Wow.
it's just, yeah, it's been crazy to just see all of this take place. And I think that in turn makes me want to be, like, stronger and more confident for women. Cause, like, I've been there and I still have my moments. Like, I tell, my friends, like, don't get fooled on social media. Like, I have my moments. I'm not this perfect human. Like, my husband's one of the few that get to see that side of me, but it just takes a balancing act, really.
Yeah. I was curious about your relationship with your husband and how that evolved. So when did you guys meet and how did that coincide with your own journey?
We met in 2019 through bodybuilding. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, his coach was, or is still married to my coach at the time.
Wow.
And same gym. We trained at the same gym. And when he found out I was competing, he was, like, interested. And my coach was like, hey, are you single? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, are you really? I was like, yeah. She's like, okay, well, after your show, there's someone interested. She was like, you're not going to date until after your show. But yeah, afterwards, he tried to before I show. He's like, do you need someone to, like, go, do cardio with, like, walk by you on the stairs with you or whatever. And I was like, I'm good. I waited till afterwards to
Nice.
start hanging out. But yeah, that's how we connected.
Were you interested in him as well when he was making those attempts?
I thought he was cute.
Yeah.
Um, he's a pretty boy. My husband's, he's handsome. I'm biased, but when I first saw, I was like, damn, he's my type. I don't know if this is gonna work out. but he has a really good heart. It's very different. He's really, really good heart and super, super, super sweet man. Like, yeah. So I was attracted for sure, but I thought he was going to be trouble.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. I think if you had a past with people like that, you're like, maybe
Yeah.
I shouldn't.
Yeah, even one of my best friends was like, I don't know about this. This seems to be like a type for you. And I was like, well, we'll see what happens.
And it worked out great.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, he's got the looks of my type, but definitely personality is amazing. He's a
Oh,
great human.
that's so awesome. And to meet him that early on too in your competition journey and to be able to grow through those years together. You said he had played a role in your own confidence development because he was very confident in himself. So what did you learn from that confidence being exuded and how did that end up actually affecting not just your competition journey, but life outside of the stage?
I feel like he knew I would, well, no, I know he knew I would go pro before I did. I looked at bodybuilding as like a goal. Like I didn't really in the beginning lock into the fact that I thought I could ever go pro. Really, I didn't. And bless his heart, at the show, it was Phoenix. It was in Phoenix that one year that I did my first national show. He bought me a belt that I now wear that was 4 years ago. He bought me a belt that had my name on it and it said IFBB Pro. And he brought it with him to the show. And I was like, you were so sweet. I cannot believe you genuinely thought I was going to go pro. Like, I could have told you that wasn't
Aw.
going to happen. And he's like, even if it doesn't, it's going to. Like, he
Wow.
manifested into my life. Like, I thought it was funny. I thought, like, the man believed in me. Like, he really did. He really does. And it's just, he's like, he used to always tell me, I think the confidence came from him. He told me, you're smart. He's like, people always think you're genetically gifted when they see you now. But when like you look back at photos, like it's like not necessarily genetics.
Mhm.
But he's like, you're smart. I love reading. I'm book smart. I'm not street smart. I'm book smart. And he's like, use it. He's like, use it to your advantage. So that stuck with me and that's what I've been doing. Like I would say most recently, like me getting that my pro card was because I decided to lean on my own knowledge and like just really empower myself. And I listened to your podcast and I listened to Adam. I loved when y'all did that dual one because it was
Oh,
amazing.
thank you.
Both y'all's podcast. And
Oh,
so just I think empowering yourself with knowledge and being able to apply that on a day-to-day basis, that's where the elevation came. And with the elevation, like you just become more confident in what you're doing.
that's so true too. I love that you said that he had that belief in you as well. For some reason, I think this is another thing that society, I think, tells women, which is like, you have to believe in yourself and love yourself fully before somebody else can. But I think there's a lot of truth in you can also borrow belief from other people. You know, you can see the love that they have for you, and it can maybe heal parts of you that maybe you didn't even know needed healing or reveal things about yourself that you never saw that way. So, I really like how part of your story is also that someone else believed in you and encouraged you, and that gave you even more, oh, this isn't just a dream. This is something I can actually achieve.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. And just talking to you about it, like it's super
Oh,
sentimental. And like I think about it now and like I tell him like, all right, I did it, you're next.
yeah.
Like and we were both and I will give Alex credit, my recent coach, huge passion, a lot of belief in me too, like a lot. I think it's just been wonderful to have, we also had we've had a few coaches over the years, and Luke is also a great one. He had a lot of belief in us too. And now, like, that I'm coaching my husband, it's like he genuinely feels it with me. He's like, I have no excuse. Like, you did what you needed to do, and I watched you do it. And he's like, I have no excuse to not
Wow.
so I'm like, you can do this. Like it's right there. Like we just gotta like buckle down and like check our boxes and educate ourselves. And I always tell them, like, watch whoever you really like, idolize in the bodybuilding industry, just watch their YouTubes. Like, they're super educational to see the way people go about, lifting and intensity
Mhm.
and diet. And I always think it's super interesting to see what people look like in their off season.
Yes, same. I
Yeah.
especially like when you can see there's differences among competitors. Not everybody looks the same. Some people are a little leaner, some people are a little bit thicker, some people are like they fluctuate a bit, but and some look different year to year. And I like that because it shows us like, okay, we're also potentially going to look different or train different or live differently too.
Yep, absolutely. And just kind of a build a reference. Like, and it may not be
Mhm.
just, obviously it's different for everybody, but I think it's just helpful. Like, also, like, the whole, I think yeah, your podcast talked about the weight and how much weight you should gain, like post. It's so different for everybody. I'm not one of those people either that stays like 2 pounds above stage weight for like weeks at a time. Like, no, especially if I got really lean and my
Oh
metabolism took
yeah.
off, which happened this prep for the very first time. Like, I was just dropping, like, it was
Mhm.
crazy. Um, so I immediately was 10 pounds up, like
Yeah.
2 weeks post stage. Like, and people were like, isn't that too much weight and whatever? Because I share
Mhm.
my story, my post weekly show, like how I'm looking on reversing. And I'm like, it's how your body feels. If digestion
Yeah.
is going in the right direction, inflammation is not too high, you're getting good sleep, you know that you're putting whole foods in your body for the most part, like, it's okay. Like,
Mhm.
stress.
Peace with food without sacrificing your goals as a competitor because you deserve to have successful preps, productive improvement seasons, and peace of mind year round. I decided to create a free 8-day food relationship coaching series a few years back that over 800 over 800 people have gone through. Because when your head is cluttered with thoughts of food, eating, guilt, you have a lot less energy to invest into the goals that you truly care about. So, this free program was designed to help athletes like yourself develop a healthy relationship with food so you can have your most fulfilling and effective preps, improvement seasons, and lifestyle phases as well. This is an 8-day series that has a video every single day, a full workbook to guide you through every single video, and you can respond to the emails with the work you did and receive direct support and guidance from me personally, which is, of course, something I love to provide to the community. So you're not only going to discover your ideal relationship with food, but you'll also identify detrimental thought and behavior patterns. You'll overcome guilt and shame. So every decision can be made with intention and pride. We will use expectations and reinforcements to seamlessly manipulate your behavior around food to be more positive and aligned with that ideal relationship with food. We'll figure out why you're really craving what you are when you're sleep deep in another jar of peanut butter or justifying that next cookie or continuously eating endless bags of rice cakes, whatever it is for you. We'll become crystal clear on why you act, think, and live the way you do so you can, of course, act, think, and live the way you want to. And we'll come up with some personal commitments that are rooted in positive psychology based on your current season. So, this is a psychoeducational course. It is free to anyone and everyone. You can access it at www.celestial.fit/food series and learn more about it, as well as even get a sneak peek into the accessible PDF notebook with the extra resources and guidance through every single workshop along the way. If you do decide to participate in it and you love it, of course, I encourage you to share it with a friend or a teammate or another athlete who may be struggling. Or if you hear about someone's struggle, let them know that this exists. Love that point. To have the confidence in execution in what you're doing versus comparing it to what other people are doing, comparing it to how other people's bodies responding, and instead going, well, I'm doing everything I need to be doing. I feel good about what I'm doing, and there's no reason why I won't achieve the goal that I have. And I think this also speaks to something you've posted about recently, which is how winning can't be the end goal. Like it could be the icing on the cake. And so that's like, yeah, you can't be so attached to an outcome that then you'll sacrifice the actual most healthy and helpful process. So if you're in your improvement season, you're up 10 pounds and suddenly you're like, well, now I need to restrict and now I need to force all this. You're going to sacrifice the process needed to get where you want to go. So talk to us about your why now, maybe this year, because you had stated it's evolved and there's been a mental evolution for you. So, how do you view winning and your goals now?
Mhm. I think, because, yeah, and I recently talked about this, but that was so well said. Like, you cannot, or at least I feel that you should not put your like everything into just winning a medal, because also at the pro level, like also mentioned, like Ashley and Adam were talking about at 1.2, it stuck with me. It's like before I went pro, I heard this podcast and it was like, this might be the last win you have for a while. And I was like,
Yeah.
shoot. I was like, shoot, that slapped really
I think
hard.
that slaps so many people, by the way. Like, that's like a now people talk about that.
Yeah, I was like, and this was right before getting my pro card that I heard this one, and I was like, oof, I gotta enjoy this one. So, yeah, it's definitely, you have to. I think it changes. Like my why going into bodybuilding was so different than my why now. My why going in, I was single, I was a mess, I had no self worth, and was
Really?
and super not confident.
Hmm.
I was lost. I was a little lost soul, and I was like, you know what, this is a great way to stop going out and partying and wasting time. So that's how I got into it. And then me and my husband bonded over it. And then it was something we just bonded over. And then after that, like now it's just evolved. And this year, being on team reform, I think has really that changed my why while I was on that team. I feel like I was his first bikini pro, not his first pro, but his first bikini pro, and a lot of the girls on there would message me and ask me questions and like, what are you doing differently? And, you know, going on the retreat that we had back in February, I felt very awkward. And not because anybody made me feel awkward. I had my meals. I was in my off season and I had my meals, and I planned on having hibachi one night. And, you know, they had food every single day, like to indulge on. And I was like, well, I don't think that I should eat like crap Thursday to Sunday. Like that wouldn't feel good. And it's not where my goals are. And I felt awkward. It's like, are you on prep? Are you on prep? And I'm like, no, I just, you know, kind of reversing still and just trying to do the best I can with my off season and maximizing things. But I think them seeing that and then fast forward all the way to July, I think it kind of made sense for people. And I think that there's more to be said about inspiring people to feel like this is attainable. And like the end for all of us, like we all leave this world. And I can't leave it with my trophies and my medals, and being on the Olympia stage would be cool. But it'd be much more cool if I knew the people next to me at the Olympia. If the people at my gym also go pro, become bikini pros, and we're all standing up there together. Like at the end of the day, like, and I recently posted this too, like, you can't beat me because I'm not competing against you. I
Mhm.
am competing against myself, and that is it. Like, if that gets me to the top, it gets me to the top. If I don't get to the top, then my journey was meant, this platform was meant for something else. It wasn't meant for me to win the Olympia. And that's something that I've like coming to terms with, because it's hard. Like you're competitive and you want to be the best, and I do. Don't get me wrong, but it it can't be the only thing. It can't.
That's the point right there. It's like you can wanting to win and having the will to win doesn't mean that it's the only important thing. In some cases, it is for people. So what you're saying is you can want to win, but also want other things in that process and in that journey to winning. And if you don't win, you're not any less or more fulfilled.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's I think it's important. I think it makes for better workouts. It makes for like
For sure.
eas- easier, like sticking to my plan. It makes it easier. Like it just your why is bigger. It's
Exactly.
bigger than a medal. I think it helps. Like it makes me feel like lately, now that I have my energy back, I've been working out with some girls that compete, and I just feel like super energized, and you know, just I think it's, yeah, it's amazing. I don't see them as competition. I see them as a friend and somebody who just
Mhm.
wants to level up, because this journey can be so lonely. Like, you
Yeah.
know, it can get pretty, isolating at times when you're on prep. So it's cool to be around people that understand it.
Yes, and I think going to seminars and events and workshops to meet those people or experience and see and witness like you're not alone in that journey can be so helpful. And as you said too, it's a matter of like you're not competing with them. Yes, in the grand scheme of things, obviously you're competing with them, but you're not competing with them in your mind or your heart.
Mhm.
That's more driven to a deeper purpose, a deeper connection. So when you won your pro card after six national shows and six regional shows, and maybe some that we've left out and forgotten, it's possible. Um, what was that moment like for you? Did it reveal something to you about winning that maybe you hadn't previously realized?
I don't know. I told my husband, like, I can't believe I didn't cry. I didn't cry, which I was surprised. And I think it really just truly made me feel like nothing about my life changes. I go back home and I'm at the point where this has become my life. Like, nothing really changes. Like, I just want to go perfect my art even more. And I feel like last year was, or this past off season was the best off season that I've ever had. So I can't wait to repeat it. Like, and yeah, no, I don't think it revealed really anything big for me. It just maybe confirmed that, like, all the hard work, the time that I was at the retreat eating my meals, and the times that I felt like, because there was this past off season was the first off season that I feel like I was a little confused on if I was taking things too seriously. Like,
Interesting.
was I sticking to my plan on my off season too seriously? Was something that I struggled with, but it kind of confirmed that it wasn't. Yeah, so I guess that was nice to feel validated in that sense.
That speaks to me personally because this last improvement season has been like 2 years and it was amazing. Best improvement season ever. I could live like this forever. On the outside looking in, people are like, "Oh, it's a little bit extreme, don't you think?" But I mean, in reality, it felt like my most freeing one. It felt very balanced. I went on vacations without tracking because I had tracked for so long. I was able to just choose foods that nourished my body and felt good and ate comfortably and like there were and then everything else is just what it is. It's your lifestyle. And part of starting this prep for me, I'm like, do I really want to do this prep when like this improvement season's so great, you know? But exactly what you just said, which is I'm excited to get back to the improvement season already. And I think when you hit that point as a competitor, it's a really rewarding place to be because you do need to appreciate and respect the preps and the in-purpose season. It can't just be, I only love my prep body, or I only love what I'm doing in prep, or I crave that. Instead, it's got to be both are important. And so you prioritized your goals, even in improvement season, which you have to do. It paid off for you. What does it look like? Like, if you were to paint the picture for us of a prep versus an improvement season, are there any differences?
There was for me, and then now it's completely different with a different coaching. So
Mm,
last improvement season, I was on still meal plan. I wasn't doing macros. This
okay.
improvement season, I'm doing macros, which is very different, and I will say very freeing.
I
Um,
bet.
but I don't think that it could have came any sooner than it did. I think that I'm perfectly landed where I needed to, and I think that people do need to follow a meal plan structured before doing macros in order to learn how to intuitively eat. I think it does take really following meal plans for a while, but um, I think different wise, you're eating more. You're going to trying
Mhm.
to eat more in your improvement season because you're trying to grow. You're generally trying to grow. When you're in your prep, at that point, you're hopefully not in too big of a deficit because you stayed at a relatively good body fat percentage. But if when you're down to about eight weeks, I mean, if that, you're maybe sooner. For some people it could be 12 weeks that you're in such a big deficit at that point that you're really just hoping to maintain your muscle and not go catabolic. So That's your prep. But in your off season, you shouldn't be there. You should be putting on some body fat. Hormones should be coming back to regulation, and that should, at least my goals during prep. Obviously, I'm messing with my hormones, so that's not optimal. But when I come out of prep, my goals are now, okay, let's get labs done. Let's look at things. I personally wait. I lose my cycle usually all the time, so I personally wait till I get my cycle back to even think about stepping on a stage again.
Mhm.
Um, but those are kind of some tidbits that are a little different from your improvement season and your prep season. But really, I try to just maintain the same routine. Like,
Yeah, so you said you think people should follow a meal plan before they follow a macro plan. I think this is a really great topic we could talk about because when macros kind of hit the scene, it became like the promoted way of doing things. But what's interesting is a lot of the people who started with macros, they were previously doing meal plans. So they really felt the impact of the freedom, but they forgot how much value and benefit there was in the meal plan too. Structure, learning meal timing, even understanding what feels good with your body, meal combinations, types of food too that can make you feel good or maybe not as good. And I'm not saying that I think everybody should start with a meal plan or not, but I do want to hear more about your perspective on that as a coach and someone who supports other people with this. What have you seen personally in helping people that way?
I think most of the clients I've taken on all want meal plans. A lot of them are busy and like,
Interesting.
yeah, and even my husband, like he's still learning macros and he's like, just tell me what to eat because he's so busy. He just wants it structured.
Versus
Um,
playing macro Tetris.
Yeah, he hates macro Tetris. I'll be his macro Tetris on Saturdays, like his personal little macro buddy, and I'll be like feeding him. But I'm like teaching him, like, I think this is important because when you're on a plan, you learn what whole foods are, which sounds very simple, but I have learned that people really don't understand what is whole foods and what is processed. Now, I will say the industry has made it very hard to really differentiate between wholes and processed food. But like, for example, I'd much rather you have a, bowl of oats over a bagel. But I understand that mentally you might want half of a Thomas mini bagel, and maybe I'll throw it in there with at least 30 grams of oats. But I want you to have some fiber. I want you to have something that's slower digesting. Processed foods go right through you. And that's not something that you want to do if you are on a lower calorie diet trying to be in a deficit, which a lot of women are. And to be honest, half the women that come on with me are like, how am I going to lose weight eating all this food? You're crazy. Like, they think I'm crazy.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I'm trying to recover the damage that you've
Exactly.
done from not eating. We'll get there, but let's focus on getting you, adequate hunger signaling. But anyways, there's a little bit of meal plan purposes. Is I think one of them is just learning what is processed, what is whole foods.
Great point. And I think to go back to your point about what a lot of women come to you with too, most people don't accurately track their food in general. So it's like they're under eating, but then on the weekends they're overeating or they're having snacks or they don't realize like tracking the creamer in my pot? What do you
Yeah.
mean? So like
Yep.
those little things add up and you learn that in the lifestyle. So I think there is value in a meal plan too, because it could also reveal what pleasures you actually really do like, or maybe even get from food, which could be revealing in other ways. But I think it could
Mhm.
also help the coach, like, okay, so we put you on this meal plan. Is there anything you were missing? Yeah, I missed having chocolate. Okay, like let's have a piece of chocolate every day, but let's do this type of chocolate. Or okay, yeah, I missed my coffee or my uh latte. Okay, well if we do a latte, let's order it like this or do it like this instead. But I think if you start with macros, which okay, I know I'm talking a lot, so I don't want to talk too much because this
Oh
is
no, you're good.
thing. But I'm sure you've probably noticed this too from a macro perspective. And given your background as a nurse practitioner too, I think one of the red flags of macros, and I follow macros, and I used to follow meal plans, but one of the red flags of macros is easy to fall into is, well, I can fit this into my macros. Therefore, you're not thinking about fiber, you're not thinking about nutrients, you're just thinking carbs, proteins, fats, and that can be such a limiting thing to our health. So you look good, but on the inside something's off. So from your nurse practitioner background, I've been dying to know, like, where did you work as a nurse practitioner, or what does that look like, and how does that influence you as a coach?
Ah, I love that question. I'll give you a rundown of my like
Yeah,
fields,
yeah.
a lot of jobs.
Okay.
I have moved a lot. And okay, so nursing, a lot of my nursing was pretty simple. I did oncology. So I worked with cancer patients
Okay.
for a lot of my background in nursing. Then did COVID travel nursing for a while.
Hmm.
And then after that, I got in the midst of COVID, I got my NP, like my master's. So I got my license, or I graduated in 2020, which was delayed because of COVID and all the things, but got it in 2020. And ever since 2020, for the past going on 5 years, I have jumped NP jobs because I have yet to find where I could land. And I feel like the good Lord just put me to fully dive into my business because I've worked urgent care, I've worked dialysis, I've worked hospice, I've worked like a clinic, and everything was just band-aids for me. Like I was putting a band-aid, I was putting a band-aid. It was people that didn't really want to hear me, like with educational things. And it was just like, here's a med, here's an antibiotic, here's whatever. And it did not feel fulfilling. And I've, working oncology my whole life. And I worked with, cancer patients who were older, but mainly younger. I worked with people who were my age. And I had such a fulfilling job. And it was so different to go to, like, I feel like I'm just band-aiding people. Like, what are we doing in this world? Then, like, was going to start at an HRT clinic that wanted to do weight loss, and they wanted to prescribe Ozempic and all this stuff. And I refuse to be a revolving door for a medication. I want to make sure that somebody who gets on a drug like this has a plan, not just a quick fix. Like, I refuse to just be a quick fix. And I understand that some people don't want to pay for a coach. I get that it doesn't make sense to you to pay hundreds of dollars for a coach. It doesn't make sense to you because you don't know the value in it. I truly, truly believe how much value I can bring to someone's life with education, with not just a health plan, but in general about reading labs and hormones and things like that. So the fact that I know what your hormones should look like, I think that in itself is going to make me a great coach. I just started recently taking on competitors, and I'm excited because I feel like there's not enough female competitors or female coaches out there. I'm now with female coach, and I think it's great. I think she's amazing, and she also inspired me. I'm like, this is just like, there's not enough. There's not enough womenly, like, we need more estrogen and we need more women coaches, because truly, truly, I mean, what better than someone who actually goes through it hormonally, right? So I think that background is gonna be so pivotal in me being able to relate, knowing that I also work in healthcare and have competed, and I've done the shit dieting, I've done the 2 hours of cardio. I've had coaches that tried to throw PEDs on me that shouldn't have thrown maybe those PEDs on me. And I've had great coaches that helped me optimize my hormones. And I've had providers that look at me like, you shouldn't be on hormones. I've been on testosterone for about 3 or 4 years now. But back then when I was 27, they were like, you shouldn't be on it. And it's like, you're not seeing my labs. Like, I had no testosterone from long-term use of birth control.
Mm.
So it's just, I think that everything that has just landed in my path has just led me to be where I'm at today. And I am excited. I'm super excited. I'm scared to jump into this. I feel like very interesting for me. Again, my husband has been like, you just need to
Yeah.
go. Like, he's just like, when can I market for you? And like, you just need to go. And I'm like, wait, wait, wait. Let's hold our horses. Let me get organized. But I'm excited. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to like educate people and just be that like source of information, because it's I think it's a good mix, like, to have someone who's in healthcare and a coach.
Well, what I find really inspiring about your background is you've seen people at their sickest. You've seen people who are literally fighting for their life against something that others are taking for granted, their health. and the choices that they make. And I'm not saying everyone who struggles with a life-threatening disease made horrible lifestyle choices. Of course, there's
Yeah.
even cases where that's not the case, but your perspective is highly valuable to be able to say, I've seen this, I've seen what can happen if you don't take care of these things. And also, what's interesting about the medical field is it is a lot of band-aids. It isn't a lot of preventative work. So it sounds like God's just calling you to the prevention and the advocacy for, okay, I don't want to be your nurse later. I want to be your coach now so you don't have to see me later. That's really what you're preventing is, or working to prevent, it sounds like. Because
Mhm.
it's also interesting, even from a therapy perspective, like when I have to write down medical necessity of someone getting therapy, I'm like, why does someone need absolute medical necessity to get therapy? Why can't therapy also be a tool that's used without it? And
Yeah.
so you in your field experience the same thing. You have to justify treatment and justify visits. Sometimes it's like, well, this should be preventative. They want to capitalize, they want to maximize, they want to prevent. They don't have symptoms. Why do we have to wait till someone has symptoms to treat them?
Yeah. It's so true. Preventative, and definitely you said it correctly. Like preventative is the side I want to be on. I'm so tired. It was so depressing to be on the band-aid side. Like constantly people just coming in, not taking care of themselves. Like, and it's just, or just they have no idea how to. You know, I can't even say that they intentionally don't take care of themselves. They just don't know.
Right.
Like, yeah, like some people just don't know. And I'll take my parents for example. They have seen me do bodybuilding for this many years. It was this year. I started my business last year in October. October would be a year. In April, my dad had an episode where he thought he was having a stroke. Blood pressure was like 200 over 90 or 100 or something like that. They call me, your dad's blood pressure's high. And he had had back surgery. And so he had back surgery and he became a little more sedentary. And my dad used to be very well, he's active now, but he had to stop because he had the surgery. But he was golfing and he's in, self-employed, does like construction and things. He's super
Mhm.
active. He had to stop being active. And so a lot of things went down the drain. Cholesterol went up, triglycerides went up. He was eating more than normal because he was home. So he gained a little bit of weight. And I'm talking little. My dad's pretty
Right.
healthy. And the blood pressure spiked up. And
Oh,
we thought he was having a stroke. He had to go to the ER, had a scare. And he's like, okay, put me on a plan.
that's amazing.
He's never been unhealthy. Like and I say that like he's had a little bit of high cholesterol here and there, but he
Right.
was up until this year, he had never been on blood pressure meds. He had never been on any type of like medication. And this year the doctor hit him with all of it. And he
Wow.
was like, okay, Selena, I'm ready. And I put them both on a plan and I check in with them weekly to this day since April, May, June, July, August. They're going on 6 months and they're on cruise control. Like I just check on them and like they're learning. My mom's learning how to read labels. I'm trying to teach them how to macro count, which has been a little challenging, more so for technology purposes.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I try to teach my dad with a piece of paper, like macros and things like that. But anyways, I think that they had no idea what like a normal diet looked like. They were honestly under eating Monday through Friday and overeating Saturday, Sunday.
Mhm.
And that's the general population, right? And then I don't know, like our culture, I feel like a lot of the times what would happen is like we'd overindulge on Saturday and then Sunday is like I'm not gonna eat anything till like 1 p.m., you know? So that's
Yes.
that's what my parents would do. And now, they have their fun on Saturday and they crave their meal plan come Monday. Like
Mhm.
they enjoy the foods that are on their plan. They'll ask me, is it okay to add this? And I joke with them now sometimes because sometimes they feel like they're so strict. I'm like, you guys aren't going pro. You can have the bite of cake. Please do not feel restricted. I'm not trying to do that to you.
That's awesome. You're like, please eat some
Yeah.
cake. Don't
Yeah.
not just because you are seeing your daughter who's a professional athlete.
Yes, it's so funny. They're such a great support, but now they get it. And my dad, he encouraged me to do my business because he's like, you have something super valuable. You can teach a lot of people. He's like, I don't know how you can do it, but like you got to figure out a way to reach more people. He's like, because if I knew what I know now, I would have done this years ago. Like he's like, I looked at you like you were crazy. He's like, but I didn't realize how good you felt. So,
Wow. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize how bad they feel until they start to feel good. They're like,
yeah,
oh, I was really struggling before.
it's amazing.
Well, I'm really glad that you're doing that and also that you opened up to competing as well. And I want to talk about your specific journey to getting your pro card and then your two pro shows and what's next. Because I think your experience as a competitor probably influences some of your approach too. You've had different coaches, so different mentors and different perspectives. But did you ever have moments of doubt in your journey to going pro because you had some up and down placings and I know that can sometimes bring about like, okay, I'm doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm doing it. I'm not. So, did you ever experience that?
Absolutely. I tell myself I get 1 hour to cry about it, and then 1 hour. And I get to work, and then my therapist tells me, you look back at something one time, think about how you could have done it better, and then you let it go. But I give myself an hour, and then I'm done with my pity party. I was like, okay, my husband already knows. All right, I'm done.
That's awesome.
But yes, of course I did, especially after Nashville. I placed fifth.
Yeah.
I felt so good going into that show. But when I woke up, I felt flat. I felt
Mm.
flat. I was like, what is going on? I just felt like I couldn't fill out. Like I was frustrated and I had looked better the day before, in my opinion. It was one of those like, what happened? I just like slept too much. Like
Yeah.
what happened? So I was getting frustrated, but this is where I feel like educating yourself by watching YouTubes and listening to podcasts and diving into the sport helped me. I know that peaking at this level is very important. So it is. I know I'm not saying the rice cake's going to change your physique, but the 3 days leading up, loading into the show, were stresses, travel days. There are a lot of things that play into your peak. So I know that my body was still not peaking at its best. So that made me hopeful. And I was like, no, I'm doing another one. Going into that, after that show, I was like thinking all these things, and I'm a solution like person. When I have a problem, like, how do I fix it? So I'm like, okay, what happened? Was my posing? Posing could have been a little better. Okay, cool. What I can book a session with so and so and go from there. And then I was like, I look flat. And my my husband's face, like he cannot lie to me whenever we're competing. Like I looked at him that morning, he took my photo and I was like, what? And he's like, you look great. And I'm like, you're lying. He's like, not that I don't look great, but like, it's not my best.
Right. Something was off. Yeah.
He was like, I just feel like you were fuller yesterday. And I was like, me too. I'm glad you said that because I feel the same way. So it was just a matter of like, I think perfecting my peak a little. And people have different ways to skin a cat. There are different ways to go about things. And this is where I dove into different things and like just tried to educate myself on different peaks. And I think it's empowering to just do that. Like, hey, I can play with the art too. At the end of the day, like
Yeah. That's
this
right.
is this is my body, and I hope, like, I'm not saying don't follow your coach's plan. That's not what I'm saying, but communicate what you're thinking and try to come to senses of like, hey, something's changed, like something's off, something's different. Um, we manipulated water going into Nashville. And I don't think that I needed any water manipulation. So I communicated that. So the next show, we didn't really manipulate any water, which is something that helped, I would
Yeah,
say, for
sure.
universe. So that's something that definitely helped my physique. But I think it's just, I think it's just, again, education and empowering and knowing that like things can change from one show to the next. And if you dive into the sport enough to know that, you will stop sulking in the placing.
Mm, that is a great, great point. You can't sulk in the placing if like you see there's opportunities for improvement, which there really always is. What was some of the did you get feedback that you were flat at that show, by the way?
Yeah, I was too lean was my feedback, and I was missing like a pop to my glutes.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then also my posing on. If you look at my posing at that show, I was I was posing on my front pose too much side. So I looked almost like too linear, like almost
Yeah.
too small versus turning a little bit more would have given me a little bit more shape in that front pose. So I did change that going into universe too.
Wow.
Mhm.
Any other feedback you were getting that year that you had worked on or focused on to like support that progression?
Biggest, I was told to come in fuller after my pro show. It was like you can eat more. You need to be fuller. Like you're too lean. We're seeing striations. I always and I when I get lean, my quads get really lean.
Huh.
So they striate, and that's something that they don't like in bikini. So getting the striation out of my quads was really hard after I had already gotten as lean as I did. Um, this is the first season that I feel like my metabolism was really up there. Like I just like my body just kept dropping weight. Like we weren't even doing cardio the last month of my prep, and it was just like stop moving.
Yeah. Nobody move. Please just eat and do a couple pump workouts.
Yeah, we were at that point, which it sounds fun, but it doesn't feel fun.
Right. You're so sensitive. Like this is something else. When you're so lean, your body, you can see everything because of that,
Yep, yep.
which you were experiencing, obviously, because the moment you weren't full enough, you guys were able to identify that and getting that feedback after that show and then being able to come back actually deliver on it is amazing. So, what did you change other than the water manipulation? Did you eat a few more rice cakes? Like what did change?
I did. I did eat quite a bit more food going
Uh-huh.
into Universe. I ate triple the amount of carbs that I ate going into Nashville. And then for Vegas, I switched coaches in between Pro Show Vegas to Florida. And
Oh,
it was
wow.
yeah, it was hard. It was a hard decision, and I was thinking of waiting until after and just doing, switching it at the end. But at a certain point, I felt like I was so vested in doing things a different way. And it just
Mhm.
was getting hard to communicate that. And I didn't want to step on toes. And I have such a great relationship with Alex. So like it just got hard, I feel like, to get on the same page with Peak. Everything else, like we literally were like a dynamic duo, and it just got hard for Peak for me on my end. And I was just intrigued with the way Jamie was peaking her clients because I saw her in Vegas. And I became friends with Alice. And Alice was kind of telling me her experience and listening to her and kind of validating what I was feeling and things like that. So I had, just followed my gut. I had to. It was so hard, but I followed my gut, and very, very different. Also, she did macros. So I went straight from a strict meal plan
Right.
straight right into macros for my second peak week of my second pro show. And I felt a sense of control. Like I felt like, okay, I have control over this. I know what works for me. Like, let's do cream of rice. Let's do this. Like, and I was filling out and filling out and filling out. And personally, I think it would have been a little bit better to start filling out sooner. I think that would have kind of distributed a little bit better, and it would have been easier on my GI. I had to fill up I switched over to her like Tuesday peak week.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it was like she started slamming food with me, and I think I ate like 3,500 calories, like 500 grams of carbs, and my weight wouldn't budge. So finally, when I woke up on show day, it stuck. And I feel like it was so different for me. Like mentally stepping on stage with a full belly was very, very different. Like,
Yeah, I bet.
and my husband was like, "You look good." I was like, "I know, but it just feels like really different stepping on
Right.
stage like this." Like it was a mental battle. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like it was definitely mentally a little bit hard to process that I had eaten that much food and
Yeah,
then step on stage like that.
so true. That's a great point. Actually, that doesn't get talked about very much. Like when you have to take a different approach to your peak or to your prep, and that does involve eating more, you look better, but there's a part of you that was like, well, at one point, this would not have been something I was comfortable with. So you're going against like your own, I guess, expectations or previous associations. So to be able to let go and do it, were you happy with how everything turned out?
I was happy. I feel like we delivered on the feedback, and I was happy. I was a little sad and stressed because Tampa is Alex's hometown, and I know he was there, so I felt a little. The emotional part of me was like a little bit torn that week.
Yeah.
And then I got so close to the team, like team reform, like all the girls on there and everything. Like the camaraderie was like, I didn't want to leave. Like I was like, I don't want to leave, but I think this is what my career needs. Like this is what I want. And it was such a heartstring pull for me that like mentally it was hard, but I was very happy with the physique we brought. And like the fact that I was just on like a second pro show, like that I just like had the guts to go do a second one and get up there and change coaches and like all the things. I'm like, I'm so proud of myself. Like so proud, and it was cool. I think I'm always someone who wants to end a season with homework, so I think that it just gave me a lot of feedback and homework and things I can work on, so that was really cool.
What was the homework that you're working on?
Tyler said he liked the fuller look and he wanted more glutes, so but more density, like go into an off season and build. He said upper body is really like you're full and you're great. He's like it wouldn't hurt to add a little bit more, but don't overdo it.
That's awesome. That's great feedback. So, do you guys have a game plan for how you're gonna achieve that?
Yeah, so I already have my workout regimen, but I also have an in-person trainer that I've been working with. It's amazing. His name's Seneca. And we actually am going to Scottsdale next weekend for like a movement analysis with Drew and Jamie. And so that's going to help a ton because right now the issue I'm running into is I keep activating my adductors. It used to be my quads. I've learned how to shut the quads off, but now I'm activating my adductors when I'm doing like kickbacks or any sort of like supposed to be glute movement. And they're very prominent in my back pose, which we don't want them to be so prominent. We need the glutes to catch up. So Jamie was telling me it has to be with your priming, like how you prime before you work out, and then also trying to find better movements that really deactivate the adductors. So just finding a way to shut those off and really, really hone in on the glutes.
That's awesome. That's gonna be really insightful, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Good. And when you had committed to going to do your pro show, was that on the advice of a judge after winning your pro card?
Yes, Tyler did tell me when I won Universe, and or I won my class, did not
Mhm.
win overall. When I got my pro card at Universe, I went and asked Tyler. I said, "What would be your recommendations for next step? Would you recommend like I go into an off season before preparing for a pro show?" He's like, "No, get up there, get on a pro show, and I think you should just get yourself on the stage." And I did. So I was like, "Okay, cool."
That's
And
awesome.
then when he told me to go into an off season in Tampa, okay, I did. Like,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Smart. It makes perfect sense. Like, why not press go if you still have the energy, the ability, the function to do so?
Mm-hmm. Yep. It was good up until up until Florida. I would say I knew I was tapped out after Florida though. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm tapped out. He told me to go into an off season. I felt I had already told myself I was going into an off season regardless
Mhm.
of what happened. Um, I had like, in my head, I was like, okay, if I do this, I'll go into an off season. I was like, no, no, you know what? Off season, like just go. My body was shutting down. Like digestion was getting a little crappy. Sleep was getting crappy. And I usually don't have issues with sleep. So when sleep gets messed up, I
Yeah,
know it's time to call it quits.
definitely. What did your sleep being messed up look like?
I was getting up like 2, 3 times, like having to pee, having to pee. And then I just could not sleep. Like it was not deep sleep. It was just getting
Yeah.
up pretty often, um, with no naps either. Like I would literally go 7 hours, and that's of 3 times at least being interrupted. So
Yeah, it gets rough. Are there other signs that you would recommend competitors look out for that might signal that they're coming towards the end of their season or should consider ending it?
Digestion is a big one for me, although it is expected. So it's kind of hard to just say, oh, digestion's bad because it is expected. You are going to get like harder to have bowel movements because you're pulling carbs and then some people manipulate water. But I would say like at a certain point, like if you're medically having to use anything to help yourself have a bowel movement, and you're doing that pretty consistently for like, I would say a month, it's probably time to take a break. And I say a month because back to back shows, it could be that you're in peak weeks back to back to back. So digestion's kind of all over the place. Usually when you get a refeed after your show, it usually gets a little better, then it gets worse and things like that. But digestion's a really big one for me, because that's how you rid toxins. So if you're not digesting, you're not ridding toxins, cortisol level is gonna look your cortisol is gonna be higher. You're gonna look inflamed. Like it's not gonna give you your best physique anyway. So why keep pushing it?
Great point. Now, from a mental health perspective, we talked a little bit about confidence, but you've also struggled with anxiety and you've been able to manage it without medication. What did your journey with anxiety look like? Did you ever manage it with medication, and how do you manage it? Did I say education or medication? I meant medication.
Medication.
Okay, my brain like followed that up with you didn't say that right. God, I was like, I don't think I said that.
I think
So
you said medication. I
yeah.
also heard.
Well, yeah, so how do you manage it now?
So I got really bad anxiety during COVID years. With COVID nursing, it unlocked a whole nother level that I didn't know I had. I think at some point, like in high school, I think I always had like some type of anxiety. Just because I usually always had digestion issues, and digestion and the brain are so connected, so connected. So looking back on it, I was like, I probably suffered from some anxiety back then. But mine for me was highlighted during COVID. And during the time of like when I worked, wasn't anxious. It was afterwards. It was coming back to reality and then trying to be normal in reality of 2020. And I'm like, I had at the time boyfriend who didn't really understand how I was feeling with the whole COVID situation, wouldn't wear a mask and all these things. And so we would fight over things like that. And it created an anxiety for me. I didn't want to hug people. It did a number on me for sure. So I sought help. I was on just like one of those websites, BetterHelp at the time, and trying to talk to somebody about it. And then I got on Lexapro. Lexapro was good. It was a good drug. I liked it. I tried Wellbutrin first, but Wellbutrin made me more anxious, which it does have a tendency to do for some people. So if it does make you more anxious, I always suggest people to try something else. Lexapro is a really good drug. The downside to Lexapro is that it can cause a decrease in your libido, but most people who are depressed or anxious don't usually care.
Yeah.
So that's the only really downside to the Lexapro. It doesn't really curb appetite. Didn't make me gain weight, of course, with healthy habits, but it's not something that people normally gain weight with anyway, like with
Yeah.
Lexapro. I was on that for years. And I decided to start meditation with an app called Headspace. And I was like, sure, I'll try it. They gave it to us like a free year for nurses. Now I know why. Free year, we needed it. And I got addicted. It's kind of you can develop a plan or you can just kind of go in as you please. And they have some for walks, some to help you go to sleep, some yoga on there. I love it. It's a great app, especially if you're learning how to meditate. And to this day, that's what I use. I use it on show days. It's specifically, yeah, I'll literally put my headphones on. And it's so funny now that my husband will tell me, like, when he sees me worked up, he'll tell me, like, you probably should meditate. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, you're right. Like, if he checks me, and it's like a pill. It's like a happy pill. Like you literally do it and you learn how to like control your thoughts in your mind. And then you're like, okay, I'm better now. Like I can breathe. And
Wow.
I think it's just so crazy. Like I think that people think it's so hard to meditate because they're like, I can't sit still, or I start thinking about other things. And I'm like, that's okay. You're
Yeah.
learning. You're learning. You go into the gym and you don't know exactly what to do until you practice. So same thing with meditation. Like it's okay if your mind wanders. It's okay if you fall asleep. Like you're gonna like eventually you're gonna reap the benefits of it. And it's the only way I was able to get off Lexapro, to be quite honest. Like
Yeah. When did you know that you were in a position to actually start coming off of medication?
So I was kind of like forced into it because I wanted, and this is funny now that I'm saying this out loud, I was trying to join the Air Force Reserves, and
Oh,
they
wow.
actually, well, from what I was told, and if someone hears this and says it's wrong, please tell me because I thought it was crazy. They told me I had to be off of any anti-anxiety medication in order to apply.
Huh.
So I was like, okay. So I was really gung ho about this, and I'm not
Yeah.
anymore. But I was like, I'm gonna go. Like, anyways, I was applying, and they asked me for prescription medication history, and they're like, yeah, well, you probably should be off of that. So apply again, be off of it for 6 months, and then apply again. So I got off of it with because of that reason,
Huh.
and it was a yeah, that's why I came off. But meditation is what helped me. Yeah.
Well, now I want to know what inspired your interest in that.
I was applying to come in as an officer, as a nurse practitioner, and I would,
Oh,
yeah. So I couldn't find what I wanted to do with my NP. Like I kept trying different jobs. I kept like it was like I wouldn't even tell people when I got a new job because I was switching. Thank God, like I'm in a field where I'm needed because I was switching like nobody's business because I was not used to having jobs to clock in and clock out. I truly, truly, truly feel like we're in this world to love what we do. And I'm just not somebody who can just clock in and clock out. It bothers me and I feel robotic and unfulfilled and unhappy. So I just would change. So I was like, well, surely maybe I don't know. I don't know what came over me. And my husband's like, whatever. He's like, if you want to do it, you want to do it. They told me I didn't have to do basic training and I would be very different. I'd come in as an officer and I could stay local in San Antonio. And at the time they had positions in San Antonio. Right now I say the last 6 months they didn't. And so now I'm kind of letting it go. I feel like I've obviously landed where I feel like I'm going to be of much
yeah.
help. So
That's awesome. I think that's really interesting, though, how you got to that point. Otherwise, do you think you would have taken yourself off medication?
I don't know. I don't know. I think I probably would have for sure still meditated and like used it, but I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know that I would have tried to come off myself. I did. It was a great time to come off too. Like things were good, family, finances, health, things were good at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a good time to come off, but I think that the push definitely helped.
Yeah. Oh wow, how interesting. I
Yeah.
think um I think it's great to be able to utilize medication, especially for people who are trying to get a grasp again, like they're trying to come up for air, trying to learn how to cope. And maybe their anxiety or their depression is so crippling that they can't figure out another way to cope because it's so crippling, like they can't even think about meditating. So to be able to go onto a medication and now you can think, oh, maybe I do have the ability to pause and start doing this.
Yeah, I definitely think I think, it's always great that we have drugs nowadays to help, but that's what we should see them as help. Like they're not meant to be something. And of course, there's always the outliers, but like for like anxiety medications, depression medications, like it's there to help you become functional because right now you're not functional. But there should be a plan to help you become functional, like trying to set forth good habits or things that make you happy or like even scheduling like, oh, I want to have coffee with this friend once a month and I'm going to meditate once a week. Like setting up a plan is always something that's going to be helpful to help you come off of that. uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I get it, like we become dependent on things and it's scary, but it'll always be there. I always tell people like when we're coming off stuff, like it'll be there as a tool. We know that it works, we know what works. It's just you have to learn, how to trust yourself too.
That's a great point. So, in looking back on your journey or your experiences, is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
um Now that I'm thinking, no, I guess I also just want to highlight like leaving coaches is hard. We talked about that, but
Yeah.
I
Well,
mentioned
tell
it on
us
my
more
story.
about it.
Yeah, I think leaving a coach, because it's such a personal journey, especially if you're with a coach for a year. I just had someone tell me today that they were leaving me too, and I was like, she's been with
Oh,
me for like I think 8 months, and she's had great results. Lost
yeah.
quite a bit of weight over the few months, and she looks amazing. I posted her to my story recently too, and she's like, I thought about this long and hard, and I'm like, no, don't feel bad, don't feel bad. Like, I don't want you to feel bad, but I definitely think it's all part of your journey, and at the end of the day you got to make decisions that are important for you, whether that be financially or just as a competitor. Like, sometimes you outgrow coaches, and that's okay. You outgrow knowledge, and you just want, or you want different knowledge,
Yeah.
and that's perfectly okay. I would not be where I'm at had I not gone through the experiences that I'd gone through. So it all just added to my journey and what's going to make me a better coach for my clients. So
Yeah, that's such a good point. I think there's probably people listening who are thinking about leaving their coach, but maybe are worried, especially when there's like friendship, there's loyalty, there's a deeper connection that maybe isn't present in a lot of people's coaching relationships. That's what kept me with my previous coach for so long, is always like I felt like I had this allegiance to them, but it got to this point where it wasn't serving me anymore, unfortunately. It wasn't. Actually, it's so funny. I had a dream about them last night. Now that we're talking about it, I'm like, whoa, I had a dream about that. But like that, it was such a close relationship, but it just wasn't what I needed anymore as an athlete. And it was so hard to leave, but it would have been, I think, harder over time to stay. And I see now, working with the coach I have now, like it was the best decision that I could have made. So, what would you tell someone who's maybe listening and they're like, I want to leave for myself as an athlete, but as a person or given this relationship, I'm worried about leaving.
I would like really figure out what is it you're worried about. If it's a worry because you don't want to disappoint, or you're afraid of what the other person is going to think, or then you're pretty much telling, you're out the door. It's your moral compass, which is, that makes you a good human. And that's okay. It makes you a good human. Do your best to navigate, in part ways, the best way you know how. And always give kudos to where it is, they should be given, because that person got you to the point that they got you to. But if you truly, your gut feels like you're outgrown and it's no longer serving you, then you know the answer. It's just, your moral compass wants to remain loyal. And a lot of us have that little golden retriever loyalty. And
Hmm.
and it's okay. Like, that just makes you a good person, and there's nothing wrong. It's not going to make you a bad person for leaving. Put it that
Yeah.
way.
I sometimes have loyalty to the point where if somebody else leaves my coach, I'm like, why did they do that? What's going
Yeah.
on? Like that's the level of it is like a family, it's like a pack. Speaking of dogs, it's like a pack, like you want to protect the pack. So but you make a great point. Like morally, it's just revealing to you that they're important and they matter. And also, and this is something my dad said that really stuck out to me. He's like, Celeste, you do realize like most professional athletes, they have coaches for many different things and
Mhm.
different phases of their life as an athlete. He's
Yep.
like, you can't like he's like, if there was someone who specialized in shoulder growth, it wouldn't be a bad idea to hire them, whether that's for a month or a couple sessions or go to a seminar. He's like, also, it doesn't mean you don't trust your coach. It just means you're learning, or maybe you have a coach for nutrition here, but a coach. And I was like, it's so different because in the bodybuilding world, you don't see a lot of that. But like, it is true that you can take from and learn from different coaches over the years.
Yeah, 1,000%. And yeah, I totally agree with that statement. That's something that's helped me make my decision, is like, college athletes don't take their college coaches, like
Yeah.
they go to the NBA, they get a different coach. Like, and it's not saying that a amateur coach cannot coach a pro athlete. That's not what I'm
Right.
saying. But there are different seasons of your life that you need and certain things, and it's
Mhm.
perfectly okay. Like, we're athletes, and again, it's almost like what I told you in the beginning. Like, as long as your intentions are pure and you don't go trash talk the coach afterwards, or
Exactly.
like, just take your journey, move on. And if you didn't like it, then try to do better by it, and educate yourself. I think that that's
Yeah.
important. That'll help you with your decisions. If you truly, truly pour yourself, if you're going to be in the bodybuilding world, really pour into it, and you grasp your knowledge, because sometimes you're wrong.
Yeah,
Maybe.
exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, it's helpful to have have the education behind people's podcasts and YouTube. There's so much free information out there. So that's helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah, people want to give. They want to provide information and insight. And I think a lot of us actually, I know that encouraged my decision to leave because I realized, the service I'm getting is not the right service for me.
Yeah.
And then like you, I was starting to take an interest in other approaches and ways of doing things that it just made sense at that point for me to explore that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, what would be your best advice for somebody who has never competed before but wants to? And then your best advice for somebody who's on their road to pro?
Okay. So never competed before, wants to. I would say, lock into something other than the placing. Like, what can I do on my way to get this to this stage date or whatever the case may be? It's going to make me a better human. Like, whether that be helping someone else, doing the journey with someone, or just also like just not attaching it to the goal. And I would say that's kind of the same thing for someone who's seeking their pro card. Is also just finding your why. And I think bodybuilding is a beautiful thing that allows us to have a platform. And if you think about what your voice stands for, like what is your voice? What does it stand for? And who is it going to influence? So when you're working out and you don't want to work out, you have this voice and you stand for this voice. You're going to stand behind the work that you have for that voice. Because if you're gonna talk the talk, you better walk it. So find out what your voice is. It could be like mine's in healthcare, mine's, educating people on lifestyles and things like that, and inspiring others that it's attainable. What's your why? Is it mental health? You are really big on mental health. Like, I think that voice is so important. And I think that everybody in this world has one. It's just really coming into tune with it. And bodybuilding helps you with that journey. It peels back those ugly layers and you learn so much about yourself and your patients, like your actual patients. So I think just be prepared to learn how not patient you can be at times. And it'll help you. Your voice that you find within yourself is going to help you, and it's going to help a lot of people. And if you can be of service to people, then you're doing good in this world.
So true. And what about for someone who's on their road to pro?
Pro, I would say, very similar. I wouldn't change really. I wouldn't change what I said for amateur to pro. I think that as long as you're honed in on that, I think you're gonna go far.
Agreed. That's such great advice. And I'm really glad that you said that. And it really ties in everything you've shared with us and taught us today. So, how can people follow your journey and see your next steps and also work with you?
So you can follow me on Instagram at Selena_IFBB Pro. And you can follow me on YouTube at MYFITNP. I am slacking on the YouTube videos. Sorry, guys. But you can follow me on YouTube or on there. And you can also go to my website. It's just www.myfitnp.com. And you can book a free consult call if you're interested in lifestyle or competitive coaching.
Amazing. And we'll make sure that gets in the show notes page. You guys, that's always on celestial.fit/podcast. If you're listening right away, it'll be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, scroll down to the category section. It's alphabetized. You can find not just how to connect with Selena and myself, but also all the notes. So you'll get a full episode summary, a breakdown of the topics we covered, and episode timestamps. So you can go back, listen to your favorite part, or share it with your friends, your teammates, let them know what resonated with you. I appreciate you guys listening. If you feel inspired to leave a rating or a review, that goes a long way, but definitely at least tag us or reach out to the athletes. Let them know, what you take away from these episodes because it goes so far for them as they share their journeys. And hopefully you'll get to share your own on here one day as well. So Selena, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And to all of you listening, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.